I love talking about just AI in general. AI in some aspects is around in the vehicle before anyone even started talking about it. If you're talking about lane assist, it's AI that's doing it. It's camera work, etc. Understand the lanes and how to keep you in there. So Toyota is always, I'm gonna always say, at the cutting edge. So if someone's just starting to have a conversation about AI, Toyota's probably already having that conversation a couple of years ago and how we're going to be able to adapt it, what it's going to do, how can we use AI in order to tell if someone's in an accident, to make that phone call in order to save their life. How can we put AI far as from a medical standpoint? Hey, someone's having a heart attack. How can we use AI in that vehicle to understand, hey, someone's in trouble. Let me call, let's get dispatch, etc. out there. So AI is being used in many ways, far as trying to save people's lives using safety.
Welcome to Engineer in the Loop, where we have hands-on conversations at the human-AI handoff, code, tools, and war stories for builders in the loop. This episode is brought to you by From Code to Clarity. Let's unlock clarity on what truly drives you beyond the keyboard. Join your fellow engineers of the Clarity Bites as we explore strategies to go from the code to find your clarity. During your free discovery chat with Clark, mention this podcast to get over 50% off your first session. Again, mention Engineer in the Loop for over 50% off your first paid session after your free discovery call. Let's get into the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the newly rebranded podcast, Engineer in the Loop, a weekly show for software engineers who ship with models in the mix. I'm Alec Harrison here with special guest Renard Henry, IT leader of Toyota Connected. How's it going?
Oh, man, it's going great. Thank you all for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Renard, do you want to give us a little bit of background of maybe how you got to where you are today, what Toyota Connected is, and then maybe the steps to getting into tech, and then what brought you to Toyota Connected?
Yeah, no, not a problem. So I'll start because it's going to be a funny story of how I got into tech. When I graduated out of high school, I originally was not going into tech. I went into college. I was going for sports medicine. So I wanted to work for a football team, you know, do all the things. So I took my first class of medical terminology, and I was failing that class like constantly. It took me like 2 weeks to get a C out of the class. The teacher came over. He was like, man, he's like, I'm so happy you passed, but you're going to fail this class. He's like, you failing. He said, go drop the class and then come back next year. So I went and dropped the class, and then I went into something that I knew, which was tech. So that's how my story. So I went from sports medicine and then went straight into tech after that. So I am, and give a little backstory, I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana. I graduated from Dillard University in New Orleans. So Katrina hit probably a couple of months right after I graduated. So that's 2005. I wind up moving to Dallas after that and been in Dallas for the past 20 years. So we're about to hit another anniversary of Katrina pretty soon. So I've been in multiple industries in my career. I've been in finance, healthcare, education, construction, and now tech automotive now at Toyota Connected. And just to give a little backstory about Toyota Connected is the tech hub for Toyota. So we work with all entities of Toyota globally. So that's anyone in the U.S., anyone international, even TCJP, Toyota Connected Japan, Toyota Motors. We are the innovation hub for Toyota. A lot of times we focus more on the infotainment system and the safety connect of the vehicle. So I myself drive a Tundra, which is my first truck ever. Love the truck. I drive that anytime I can. If my fiance asks me to go somewhere, I'm ready to hop in the truck and go on my own, put some music on. I could drive for hours in that truck. So I am a avid lover of trucks in general now. So, you live in Texas, you buy a truck. So I got a truck myself. So moving up, I started on the service desk when I got my very first job. Over time, I moved up, moved to different jobs, different industries, and wind up getting into management. But after management, I started seeing great leaders, and that's what switched me into leadership. So, when you get out of college, you don't think about that you want to be an executive. You want to be a leader. You're just like, I need a job. Somebody give me a job so I can start paying my bills. So that's how it started for me. And over time, working with great mentors, great sponsors, and great teams changed my outlook on how to lead teams. And to add into that, outside of work, I am a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So I've been training in jiu-jitsu for 14 years now. And I take a lot of aspects from jiu-jitsu in order to lead other teams, pay it forward, look for other opportunities. Never look at them as failures. I look at them as opportunities no matter what. So that's the backstory of where I am now. So I've been with Toyota Connector for 3 years now. It's been great. We go from having a conversation to testing all in the same day. So that's how fast we move. We don't, a lot of times you got to go through change control, or if you're doing agile, you got to have all these meetings just to make a decision. Sometimes we'll have a conversation that morning just about something, and someone will come back and ask, hey, did y'all start testing already? Sometimes like, give us a second, we got other things going on. But it's good to understand what fast-paced is in your career, especially if you're trying to make it to the next level. If you ever think about going to management or leadership, you got to understand that the pace is going to be different at different industries. And I've been lucky enough to work in different industries to see how IT works in multiple different industries.
Yeah, that's super interesting, because I think we've all worked at a place that, you have maybe it's your capital A agile, your safe agile. It's like, okay, well, we have our quarterly commitments. And then if you want to change that, you have to go to the change management board meeting. You're like, as this change would have taken us less than a day to do, but you've just talked about it for 3 weeks or whatever it is. So it's kind of cool to hear about the different perspectives of Toyota Connected and how you guys are continuing to move quickly. And I think Toyota also historically gets credit for the lean manufacturing principles too, of being through there, building stuff just in time, not really wasting time, and doing just what you can as soon as you can, and basically getting out your constraints so you can continue to build, iterate. So it's cool to see that you guys are still practicing that, because I think a lot of corporations point at you guys and just like, hey, we want to be more lean. Well, what does that mean? Like, well, just look at Toyota. They're still doing it today. Mm-hmm. It's not we got credit for it and then put in bureaucracy again to backfill.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's interesting from a Toyota standpoint. If you think about just the vehicle itself, they are one of the most dependable vehicles anywhere. If there's an issue, they approve upon it. We approve upon the issue. We don't say, hey, let's get rid of an entire engine and start over from scratch. It's like, let's fix it. So those engines usually stay around for, forever. I drive around Texas. I can still see a Tundra from the 90s still being driven around DFW anytime, a Corolla, a Camry, etc. All these vehicles that still run around. Some people, are going past 200,000 miles on their vehicles. So it just shows that reliability of the vehicle.
For sure. I think it's a testament to the engineering too. One thing I think would be cool to touch on with the whole craze of the industry, we're talking about, everybody's talking about generative AI and AI in general. I used to joke with people that I wanted a Tesla because I live in Omaha. My dad lives in Wyoming. If you've ever driven across Nebraska, it's straight, it's flat, it's boring. And I just wanted something to take me from Omaha to Wyoming without crashing. And Tesla, got all the credit for being fully autonomous, all this and that. And then we actually just got my wife a new car. I guess this would probably been 2 or 3 years ago at this point. And it has, adaptive cruise control, lane assist, 5%, or at least interstate driving, pretty much 100% autonomous, minus it won't pull off the interstate for you. But car manufacturers, your more traditional ones, they've been experimenting with AI a long time. And you talked about the infotainment system and the safety. I'm just kind of curious if you can touch on, how does that work? How have you guys been experimenting with AI and all that kind of stuff when you have Tesla pointing to, or other companies pointing to, we don't have 5G now. That's why we need to wait. And now we have 5G and all these other things. And then you have Nissan, Toyota, all these other companies doing on-machine autonomous, adaptive cruise control, lane assist on something that is pretty dangerous potentially if you get that wrong. And you don't see, your guys' vehicles, Nissan's vehicles in the news of, accidentally crashing. How does that work in your guys' system?
I think far as Toyota is concerned, Toyota is good about seeing the landscape of the industry and seeing when to bring things out. At first everybody was like EV. Everybody was going EV. Car manufacturer were all in on EV. And then all of a sudden you started seeing everybody pull back. Toyota did the same thing. Toyota said, hey, we're not going to do EV right now. We're going to go more hybrid. Hybrid works right now, especially in Texas. There's so much stuff that's not available in Texas. Would you say California? California has a lot of charging stations. Texas doesn't. So having EVs, not so much out here. Don't get me wrong. You see people in Teslas, Rivians, etc., but there's not enough spaces. So going into AI, and I love talking about just AI in general. AI in some aspects is around in the vehicle before anyone even started talking about it. If you're talking about lane assist, it's AI that's doing it. It's camera work, etc. Understand the lanes and how to keep you in there. So Toyota is always, I'm gonna always say, at the cutting edge. So if someone's just starting to have a conversation about AI, Toyota's probably already having that conversation a couple of years ago, and how we're going to be able to adapt it, what it's going to do, how can we use AI in order to tell if someone's in an accident, to make that phone call in order to save their life. How can we put AI far as from a medical standpoint? Hey, someone's having a heart attack. How can we use AI in that vehicle to understand, hey, someone's in trouble. Let me call, let's get dispatch, etc. out there. So AI is being used in many ways, far as trying to save people's lives using Safety Connect, and also just in general, I think AI is going to become where eventually autonomous vehicles will be around a lot more. Right now, I'm not an avid fan of autonomous vehicles. It's too early. 1 minute it's in a lane, another minute it's running over someone's cat or something like that. So you just really don't know right now. So
cats were harmed.
It's early. Yeah, it's early right now. You just don't know as far as autonomous vehicles. But do I see that happening? Yes. I think eventually we're going to get to that part where you're going to see more of those. Testing's going to be done a lot better for it to make sure they're a lot more reliable. So Toyota is in that pathway just like every other auto manufacturer is right now.
Interesting. You said some stuff in there that was really interesting. I think a lot of people forget that AI has actually been around for a long time. And when you mentioned, the hybrid lane assist being just AI on cameras, I feel like there's an opportunity there to spin the narrative a little bit, because everybody's like, well, AI driven cars are dangerous, but how could you maybe leverage that and say, well, no, they're not. We've been using it for years.
I think, most people, like you said, most people don't know that AI has been being used that long. They just think, oh, it's lane assist. I think for me, working at Toyota, I got to learn a lot more, because I used to be one of the people like, hey, my vehicle works. I drive it. I don't really understand the technology. Hey, my radio works. I can do what I need to do. But seeing the intricacies in how AI is being used just for, like we say, lane assist, that is technology that was ahead of its time 5-6 years ago. Because, there were a lot of vehicles that didn't even have lane assist at the time. So people need to understand that AI has been around for a long time. It's not I would say AI was never at the height that it is now, because everyone talks about it. There's a new company coming up every day using AI, leveraging it in 700 different ways now. So AI is not going to go anywhere. People are always worried about AI is going to take my job. Right now, no. AI is going to take a lot of the low-hanging fruit, task away from you right now, which that's what you want. You want it to take some of the low-hanging fruit for you so you can work on the advanced stuff. But I always tell people, no, AI is not going to take your job. But if you don't grasp and understand what AI is going to do now and in the future, someone who knows is going to take your job from you. So it's the main focus on it is to grab a hold of it, understand it, and grow just like AI is going to be doing. Eventually, it's going to be, that's all we're going to talk about at one point in time. Eventually, AI is just going to be a normal thing that we deal with on a regular basis, and it's going to be part of everything that we do.
Yeah, my brother-in-law and I were talking this last weekend. He was talking about this concept of white stoplights. Have you heard of these?
I haven't.
Okay. And I don't know where he heard this, so I don't have any documentation on it or anything. But essentially, the idea is at some point cars will be autonomous enough that they can communicate with each other and with stoplights. And so we can have these stoplights that don't actually have to stop cars. They'll just be able to have, okay, this car is scheduled to go through, and the AI systems around that literally would just keep traffic flowing through this intersection without people crashing into each other. So I didn't know if you'd heard anything about that or not.
I have not. I'll be honest, I have not. But I can understand the concept that you're coming from. we've kind of seen it in movies already. You know, what we're talking about, there's been many movies similar to that. That would be nice not to have any traffic.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. Because right now it's always somebody in the front who starts the traffic off, and you just don't understand it. I used to joke with people. I was like, how is there traffic when the interstate never ends?
Right.
I was like, how's that even possible? Who started the traffic if the interstate never ends? So it would be nice to have that at one point. But, you know, like you said, we've had movies that are similarly understanding, hey, that technology is, you know, the lanes just keep moving. No one's stopping. There's no red light. There's no green light. It's just free flow. And technology, AI, is the one that's understanding how to keep making those vehicles go. So if that happens, which more than likely it will, since we're just talking about AI in general, I would love to see that, to be honest.
Me too.
Yeah, it keeps people moving traffic. I think eventually you'll get to a point where insurance premiums will probably be like, if you're physically driving your car, you're going to pay more.
Oh, I believe that.
And just because it'll be safer when you know you have all these machines that can time everything perfectly, don't have to react. Like, it just seems like we'll eventually get to that point, but I think we're a little ways off, at least from that, just with, you know, not even taking into account weather at this point, right? Like, just even in perfect scenarios, like when a car loses their 5G connection or whatever, when you're weaving in between traffic or potentially everybody's converging at an intersection at like 40 miles an hour and be like, oh shoot, my car lost connection, and now you're T-boning somebody or being T-boned. Like, there's some ramifications there that people don't want to be dealing with.
See, I think that what's really interesting would be that we wouldn't have to go as fast. We wouldn't need to weave through traffic. If everybody was agreeing that they were going to all go at 70 miles per hour and nobody's going to be hitting the brakes, you would never feel like you need to, like, I got to speed up to 75 to get around this guy because he's going 68, you know, or something, you know, and it's just like, you wouldn't have any of that.
Yeah, I agree. Like you say, once again, we've seen a ton of movies just like that. Yeah, if everybody's going at the same speed, then no one's stopping. It's just free flowing. You know, you got exits, you know, the cars go off the exit where they need to go. So everything just keeps moving. So there's no one being late. Everyone's on time, etc. It'll shock the world. That's what I would say. People be shocked. Like, man, I get everywhere on time, get my vehicle, tell it where I need to go, and I get there on time every single time.
Well, and I think there's the craziest too. Tesla announced at one point, I don't think they ever delivered on it, but supposedly if you bought a new Tesla, you'd be able to basically ride to work and then let your Tesla go and do Uber for you.
Yeah.
So it was like your car can make money on your behalf while you're at work or whatever, and then eventually get back to picking you up again.
And put 10,000 miles on my car every week. I'm sure my insurance company would be super happy about that.
I don't know if it ever went anywhere, but that was an announcement they made a couple years ago, and then it kind of got hushed away. But like, that could be a kind of future that we could get to, of where people, you know, if your car can drive itself, assuming you're okay with mileage on it, right? Like, go make money while I'm making money.
I'm going to go all conspiracy theory, like, what's the word, like 1984 George Orwell on you, though. Well, why own a car then? You just have somebody else's car drive you around, and then all the rich people own the cars, and everybody else is subservient to the people who own cars.
You could definitely get there. I mean, with car prices rising.
Yes.
I mean,
somebody said there's a $154,000 Mercedes SUV or something like that. $4,000. Now that's more than a house in Iowa. Like, what am I going to drive around in a house for?
If you think about it, if we're going autonomous, and what's probably going to happen, I can see this happening with autonomous vehicles and AI. People are going to start owning fleets of vehicles and just start opening up other companies. So, you know, you go back to, you know, taxis, etc. I'm just going to own a fleet of them. I'm going to have them go out, pick people up, do what I need to do, and they just come back every time. So it's just going to be, you know, that churn that's going to happen. There's going to be a ton of different companies who are going to do that once AI and autonomous vehicles are the standard. That's going to be it for that.
That's an interesting point, because it could be something that could be, assuming, you know, prices come down, or if older vehicles could be autonomously, that could be a pretty not crazy capital intensive thing to do. And then worst case, you just resell the cars, right? Like,
there you go. Passive income. Easy.
Yeah, because you don't even need drivers at that point with potentially, or maybe it could be a less skilled driver because the car's driving itself for liability reasons or whatever. But yeah, that could be really cool. I think that's one thing they're dealing with the SUV, or not SUVs, the big rigs right now, is they could drive by wire, but for liability reasons, sometimes they still put people in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
But how long until that person isn't needed, or till most long haul stuff, and maybe when you get into a city, you get a driver to actually take it. But the monotonous just driving between the lines in the, outskirts of Texas or Nebraska or Iowa, like, how long until that's just done by a machine?
Here's another one for you. We talk about autonomous vehicles. When will it start hitting planes, aircraft carriers, etc.? When will it become where there is actually not a person sitting in a seat in order to fly a plane, move ships, etc.? That's going to happen as well. And everybody's just looking at vehicles first, but you got to see what else is going to take over after a while. Once that starts, eventually that's going to happen. If you're just talking about a vehicle, eventually it's going to be a plane. Eventually it's going to be a big rig. Eventually it's going to be a ship that it will take over, and there won't be anyone manning it anymore.
I think big in Iowa and Nebraska too, like combines, like those kind of planters and whatnot, can definitely map out fields today.
They can pretty much drive themselves already on GPS.
Yeah. Like a lot of those, I think we're definitely going to see a point where you can pay, it might be a premium, or maybe it becomes standard, but like if you don't want to go farm your field, you just hit a button and your $1 million combine just starts driving around. And
Yeah, you're the one who doesn't want to get up very early in the morning, so it's already out there, field tending everything, crops, etc. It's already taking care of everything for you. All you basically are doing is just walking around managing everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think Microsoft, they called it the frontier firm, have kind of talked about what they expect with the progression of agents and some of this AI, of where, you have specific ones that maybe help you with generic information. You're then going to move to more specialized ones or orchestrators, or they even see even further out, you are now a human interacting with agents and other humans to basically delegate tasks, tell them to go do something, then you have to be the one in the seat reviewing it. Like from an IT perspective, hey, I need to onboard this employee, tell an agent to go do that, and that starts your back of house processing of how do I put a request in for a laptop, how do I start provisioning it, how do I create whatever roles and access to software, like all that starts to magically come, and then you as the user then would review, hey, did that machine actually show up? Do they have an access to an account that they need? And then you're able to focus on higher level things. I'm kind of curious with your role and AI rolling out, have you seen anything crazy, or how has AI impacted you either personally or professionally in the last 6 to 12 months?
I would say personally, of course, for me, and it's more on the low end, everybody uses ChatGPT, Gemini, etc. I've probably at least tried them, or at least, even me, I have ChatGPT. I wind up getting a subscription to that as well. It does help out. I'll be honest. It helps out just some, small minor tasks, etc. But we are still not at a place where you can 100% rely on AI right now. Some of the stuff that it'll come back with is not correct, etc. So I would say, I always tell people, if you're going to use AI, even if you have AI write something for you, review that. Make sure it's correct. Don't just take that and then go put that somewhere. And because most people, everyone still researches, etc., to make sure stuff is right. So I always say that for that. But going back, and I just made me think of something when we're just talking about AI in general. My generation, I'm gonna be saying my age a little bit, is one of the last generations that didn't have technology at all. Okay, I was born, there was no real technology at all, and just seeing how fast we have moved, I'm about to be 46. That's pretty fast. We've moved through technology pretty fast, and now you have the newer generation and the kids who are going to be born further, they're going to already be so much into technology already. It's just going to be astonishing. They never will know anything about rotary phones, etc., unless they go to a museum in order to see that. I think we're going to start seeing a progression of things moving a lot faster going into the next 10, 20 years as far as technology, AI, autonomous vehicles, etc. We're going to start moving a lot faster on that. So I think, technology just in general, AI just in general, it's a good time to be in tech right now, I'll be honest. We're going to start weeding out a lot of the more than 200 companies that pop up every day that are saying, hey, we're an AI company, we're doing X, Y, and Z. That'll start weeding out eventually. And then we're going to really see some change. My thing I always say, so, going a little bit back, I'm looking at, for me, even though I'm in the tech automotive space, I want to see how AI is going to do on the medical side, hospitals, curing diseases, etc. My mother passed from breast cancer when I was younger, when I was in my 30s. So I just wonder, like, hey, if this stuff was around at that time, could have been detected a lot earlier than her having to go to the doctor? What steps could have happened? Could we have had a cure that would have been easy, almost like just taking a pill and be done by now if we had AI? AI, as far as in the medical side, is going to advance so fast. We already have it. I think I saw something yesterday where even a doctor said, man, AI is probably going to take my job in a couple of years. And he was just looking for a certain thing on an x-ray, and he fed that in AI, and AI found it instantly. He was like, eventually it's going to take my job at some point. It's just faster. It's going through that data a lot faster than us as human beings. So it's going to be astonishing to see in the next, like I say, 5 to 10 years.
I could be misremembering. I think this was a real place. Like with AI, there's always a grain of like, is this even real? I want to say it was an Asian country, maybe I want to say Japan, but I could be wrong, where there's a hospital that's completely run by basically robots and doctors.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah, okay. Like, I'm not crazy, because they basically had human-like assistant robots or whatever that could help people, do whatever you needed from, and then the doctors were there to converse with AI to say, here's the treatment plan, here's what we actually need to do. And I think the expansion of healthcare and how much better service you can give people, potentially even in rural areas where maybe it's not financially reasonable right now to spin up a hospital in rural Nebraska or Iowa. But when you start talking of like, hey, we only need to employ a doctor, and then we can buy machines that maybe is a one-time cost, but maybe it becomes more fiscally reasonable, and we can then support smaller rural communities as well. Yeah. So I think just access to healthcare is something I'm kind of keeping an eye on. Living in Nebraska, you go sometimes without a major city for hours on the interstate, or same in Iowa.
I think the next part of that that'll be even more interesting is when they're allowed to actually make decisions. Because right now, it's pretty much still the old paradigm with AI is we tell it, here's a set of guardrails for you. You can only operate within this. And if it gets to a certain point, you have to seek approval, or you just can't do it. But what happens when we say, hey, autonomous vehicle, or hey, surgical robot, or whatever AI, we trust that you're going to make the right decision when you're presented in the spur of the moment to make the incision on the right blood vessel without us intervening, like going beyond the guardrails a little bit.
I have to talk ethics almost at that point too then, right? Like, it's the trolley problem, especially with like autonomous driving, right? Like, hey, you're driving too fast as an autonomous vehicle. Maybe you shouldn't be anyway, but do you take out the old person or the young person if you have an unavoidable crash? And that whole ethics dilemma about that. And I think it'll definitely be something interesting. It's kind of a problem we have today too, though, right? Like x-ray technicians, for example, that read your x-rays are not allowed to diagnose anything. They have to call up the doctor, even though it could be a break clear as day. They medically are not allowed to diagnose you. But, they could be like, well, if I was a doctor, here's the area I would be looking at, and this should be connected, but I'm not allowed to diagnose you, so you'll have to wait 2 hours for a doctor to call you and tell you you have a break. And it's like, okay, this is goofy, right? Yeah, of course it's not. My bone's broken.
My arm's flopping around, but I can't tell you it's broken. I'm not allowed to.
I can't walk, but I gotta wait for the doctor to tell me that it's broken. Like, I already know it's broken.
Right.
Already. It's something I already know.
I've known since the second it happened, sir.
Yes. But one thing that I noticed, and since we're talking about AI, what's going to happen, we're going to see an increase in jobs. And the reason, and around that is going to be AI governance. Right now, that's not a main thing right now, but it's something that's going to have to happen. We're going to have, like you say, guardrails. We're going to have guardrails for a while we understand more. And there's going to be more jobs for that. People are going to get hired just to govern AI for most companies. That is going to be the new job that's going to be coming around. It's probably going to happen pretty soon. Probably if it's not even happening now, it's probably going to happen the next year, 2 years at the latest. So that's going to be big, because I think every company, no matter what, that's going to be a new job for a tech department. AI governance. How are we going to do that? And in a sense, even at Toyota, we might not have AI governance team or a person, but you know, you have your infosec team. Your infosec team is going to be looking around AI and decide, hey, what we're going to be able to bring in, how much are we going to let it have access to, you know, are we just going to let it be free, be able to see everything, or we're going to put guardrails around it that they only can access certain data for us in order to keep moving on with a project, a task, etc. So right now, your infosec team is probably going to be the team who's going to do your governance right now. Even though it's not a title, eventually it will become one.
Yeah.
I could definitely see that. Even the POCs we're building out for customers now, you have a mixture of people thinking things are too difficult or they're scared. So that's kind of like the first bridge you have to cross with AI is like, okay, well, as a consultant, I can tell you like why it's safe. Here's all the policies. Pick your vendor of choice, right? Microsoft has all of their uses out there. You can go super deep if you're like a chief security officer where they go and talk about citing different things and, you know, the legal requirements of all that. But at the end of the day, like to a certain level, it's safe. But then you take the next step forward of, all right, if I just index all of my data and throw it into AI, what I want Brian to look at, what I want me to look at, could be two different things. And are you going to hope a prompt is good enough, or do we need to put, like you said, physical guardrails of when Brian talks to the model's only able to touch this versus when I touch the model? And those are questions that I don't think not a lot of companies are having yet because they're still on the AI is hard and AI is
Use
scary.
it or not. It's an all or nothing. There's no grade of use yet.
Yeah.
And I think as you continue to adopt, and like I just gave a talk last night of here's all these open source things you can start using at your company. Here's the business use cases of why you'd want them, and just get started. Like it's safe. And then you have those follow-on conversations of cool. Once you start doing that, you need to be keeping governance in mind. Keep the other thing is usage, right? Because it's the cloud, so you pay as you use it, unless you want to do bare metal hosting, which is a whole different thing, but you're still paying for something. And then you need to talk about, even on bare metals, then who gets allocated what. So you're still kind of having the same problem of how do we manage who can use what, when, how often. And those are real conversations, right? Especially if you start talking internal users. Cool, is it a cost center thing? Like, do we share the costs with people? Are we going to make this so other people externally can have it? Cool, is that now going to be a paid subscription? Like, how do we recoup some of the cost? Or is it just so revolutionary that we don't care eating the cost for internal productivity gains or external client satisfaction? And those are all conversations that people, when I'm in the conversation of do I use AI, yes or no, I think people who say no are going to be left behind because people are going to do more with less, like you said. Fast forward. Even when you say yes, the conversation can't stop there because then you have the fun of, I think Samsung was the early people who got caught of using ChatGPT for free, put too much data in there, and then guess what? The model's putting your data back out to everybody to see. You don't want to be that company, and how do you avoid being that company moving forward?
Yeah, I think what happens with a lot of companies, especially with so many different AI, out there, everyone just said the new thing comes out, man, I got to check it out. And no one thinks about like, man, if I put this data in here, what's going to happen to it? You put stuff in ChatGPT, it's learning from it. It could get leaked. It's possible. So you got to understand what you're doing. And that goes back to the business needs to understand why they need to use AI and what guardrails are going to be around it. I think you like you talked about, you go in there, people are scared, they don't understand it. So you kind of got to bring it to a basic level first and then get to the technology part later. And don't get me wrong, you might go to some tech companies where, hey, I just need to be as technical as possible for them to understand why they should use it. But then you go to some companies where, the executives really don't understand it. You got to go to a basic level. And like I always got to say, you got to tell them why they should care. When you're in the boardroom, when you're in an executive meeting, and when you're trying to bring a new solution to the business, your job is to help them understand why they should care. So once you do that, then you start going through, let me bring this in, let's work in it. But then you have the thing I love, and I know both of y'all have probably been through it, the shadow IT. And that goes, we're just going to bring stuff in. All of a sudden you hear other departments are using 5 different AI bots, and we didn't even know about it. So now we got to regulate, make one the standard, and then move forward after that. And that goes into, again, AI governance in a sense. I need to standardize for the business, what technology are we going to use? What AI are we going to use? I'm in the point right now, we're doing that now. Because I work for a tech automotive company, so what happens? Soon as they hear about something new, man, we got to try it. We got to start working on it. We got to start using it. So now all of a sudden I was like, no, we need to slow it down to make one general focus. This is what's going to work. GitHub has its own, you go to Copilot, etc. So it has to become eventually a standard of what's going to be used for the business. We can't have the Wild West and we use 200 of them. And then all of a sudden we start getting data leaks. People start putting code in here, which is proprietary to the business. And that's any business. So now we got to have regulations. We got to have guardrails for it. Or like you say, you could wind up like Sony. Could wind up like another company, and all of a sudden you're on the news leaking critical information that could be for, the next project of next year, and now the entire world knows about it now. So it has to be AI governed, it has to be guardrails, and it has to give the business a general focus on what they should use going forward.
I agree, and I think I like the way you framed it of what problems they're actually trying to solve with it. Let's not use the new shiny because it's the new shiny. Let's focus on the real problems and then work backwards to, okay, how do we make that? Because I make the joke with people, I rain on people's parade because they'll come to me with hey, we have 4 business decisions and we want AI to basically be the shepherd of that. And it's but an if statement is free and it's always right. It never tells you I don't know or make something up. Do you really want that in your business system? And I have to tell people, AI is cool and all, but this is probably not the best use case for that, because you're going to be mad if you don't go to one of those 4 and it just picks the 5th one or C or
And is that something you can trust? It picks 5. Are you sure?
Yeah.
This one was the right one?
Are you sure about that, AI? Because I think you're wrong.
Yeah, it's so you still got to have some, common, thought process into it before. Because I look at it like this: if AI is there, I do the same. This is what I do with my team. If my team has a idea, something they're thinking of, tell me why. I'm not just gonna pick out of 5 of them, just be like, yeah, 2, and without any answer for it. So it's the same thing. I need to understand, why should we do this? I love my team that comes up with new technology, new solutions, etc. But my question, and even with AI, is why should I do this? Why should I change my mind on the direction we were going in? And, if we were going left, why should I go right? You're going to have to give me some definitive data to tell me that. And that's the same thing. We should just not let, like we say, AI, we shouldn't just ask a question and just automatically think that's the right answer.
Yeah. I mean, my AI recommended today that we implement a new hot dog cooking feature in our Toyota Tundras, so that when we go to the grill outs, we'll automatically be able to cook it. It's only going to cost us $500 million. What do you think? Should we do it?
You're like, yeah, sure. Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's do that.
You touched on something really interesting that I was, when you were mentioning earlier about, the 200 or whatever, random number of versions of things that we could use. So you're on a tech innovation hub for the entire company. How do you suggest, or what suggestions you have around a team that wants to be innovative, a team that wants to try new things, but yet has to discern what's worth spending my time on? How do I prove that this is the tool? Do you have any suggestions or advice around those things?
Yeah. I would say, and this is, and going back, since we're talking about this. So with my team, every single year we look at our hardware, network stack, etc. So we go fresh lens. Does this still make sense for the business? So it's the same way like that. There's so many things. It needs to go into, what is your why? Why do we need this? What is it going to solve? What's going to be the return on investment if we use this? So technology is everywhere, and everything, you hear about everything every 5 seconds. You want to test it out. Now, I don't think anything's wrong with testing things out. That's the only way you find out if it's going to work or not. But it has to be strategic, and it has to be centralized to understand, what are we trying to solve first, then bring in the right solution, start testing that. And then then you can have a conversation with the business saying, hey, we saw this issue that we were having, we found a way to solve it. These are the steps that we did, and this is the reason why we should bring it in. It shouldn't just be the Wild West, and your whole team's trying to decide out of 50 different solutions to bring in, but no one's going to tell me what is it going to solve? Like, I don't want to see anyone waste their time trying out 50 of them when we can hone it down to 3 and then start knocking them out to make the decision from there. And I think that's what any team should do. You shouldn't have 50. You need to knock it down to at least 3 to 4. And then now you can start honing in on what are these things going to solve for me? How is this going to make the business better? How is it going to make it faster? How is it going to affect growth? It shouldn't just be how is this going to fix something for the IT department? It should be how is this going to solve something for the business? That should be your overall goal. It doesn't matter if you're IC, an individual contributor. It shouldn't matter if you're a manager, leader, whatever level is. The changes that you make affect the business. It doesn't affect the department, it affects the business. If I'm running a boat, I need the boat to keep moving, so everybody has to play their part. So that should be the main focus at the end of the day. If we're going to bring in something in, how is it going to mitigate risk? How is it going to increase growth? What's my return on investment?
I think that's a great point to end on. That's what we're all here for in IT, right? To make the business more seamless and smoother, and ultimately allow people to focus elsewhere and continue growing. It's been really awesome talking to you, Renard. Do you have any shout outs you want to do? How can people connect with you? Any of that sort of stuff?
For the main part, connect with me on LinkedIn. Renard Henry, you'll be easily able to find me. We also have our own podcast that we're doing, Black Belts and Boardrooms. Please tune in. Definitely would love to have y'all on the podcast. We can, call it the Royal Rumble of Leaders. So would love to have y'all on for that one. But besides that, it has been great being on the podcast, and thank y'all for having me.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, everybody.